Yep.
All right, let's go elsewhere in the state of Florida to the Jacksonville Jaguars. A team that got as high as 5 at one point in these power rankings.
Preseason Super Bowl pick from the AFC.
It is early, guys.
3 weeks.
The Jaguars are down to number 20. Here's your purple prose you put in your blurb. What was that against the Texans? Or were they simply overrated by many, including me? They sure don't look like a playoff team. Down 10 spots, 1 and 2. What's going on? Because look, AFC South wide open now. Feel like any of those teams could win it. Even the Texans, even the Titans, and they've looked real bad at points in time. Colts have looked pretty good. Jags have looked like trash. Is this simply a play calling problem, Pete?
Well, it's not just a play calling problem, but the interior of the offensive line is bad right now, particularly the left guard. He's terrible. Ben Barch is spinning top of all time right now. And, they pay Brandon Sheriff a bunch of money. And he's not playing well. And so they're calling plays for that reason. In other words, a lot of, horizontal stuff, nothing down the field. And Trevor Lawrence is sped up. And when he's sped up, he'll take a little slant pass when he can have a big shot down the field. The other thing is Ridley, 2 drops, 1 was a touchdown. Here's another thing. Think about this. They had receivers jump off sides, false starts 3 times, twice by Ridley. Have you ever seen that before? Oh, they tell receivers, look at the ball, look inside. And it's amazing to me. They're sloppy. And I think Doug Peterson called them out this week. He said they're reading their press clippings, probably what I wrote about them mostly. But I think when you look at it, that's a problem. And then here's the other thing. The Texans had 4 backup offensive linemen starting on Sunday. You know how many sacks Jacksonville had? None. 0. Trayvon Walker, the projection isn't working. He should be blown up to another 15, 20 pounds and put his hand on the ground because he would be a much better player that way. He's not an elite edge rusher. And it doesn't help him that Hutchinson's one of the league leaders.
Trent Baalke's beef with Jim Harbaugh coming back to bite the Jaguars in the ass right now because they would have taken Aiden Hutchinson if he didn't hate Jim Harbaugh.
Well,
and tiny arms.
But Trent likes to pick, body types and projects and everything else, and he can't help himself by picking a linebacker every 2 rounds in every draft. It's ridiculous. And they thought those guys were going to grow up. They thought Trayvon Walker would take a step forward. They thought Devin Lloyd would take a step forward. They thought, a bunch of other guys would improve, and they haven't. And so they're not good right now. And you know what? When he says that, he's calling them out for that exact reason. Here's the other thing. One last thing about the offense. The Texans played zone the entire time. Those receivers ran into the man every single time instead of sitting down in the zone. That creates problems. And so that tells me they're not putting the work in.
So a couple things. Is this just a function of the Jaguars for some inexplicable reason not being able to beat the Texans because they struggle against the Texans? Or, as Brinson mentioned, and Doug Peterson actually refuted the fact that he took over play calling from Press Taylor at halftime. Is this a situation where Press is overwhelmed? Doug needs to take over? Because it ain't like these are Matt Canada and Luke Getsy. These guys should know how to coordinate up at offense.
Well, they also lost Jim Bob Cooter, remember? He left. And Jim Bob Cooter was the passing game coordinator. And Jim Bob Cooter is supposedly a really good coach. So I think that's hurt them as well.
You really want to say Jim Bob Cooter 3 times there, didn't you? Huh?
It's a bunch of different reasons, but it's not very good right now. But having said all that, they play in a garbage division. So you get hot at the right time, you're going to win the division.
They lost to the worst team in that division by a ton. They got their asses whooped.
Well, did you see the kickoff return by the fullback?
Andrew
how
Beck.
how the hell does that happen? I mean, first off, why are you mortar kicking it? And that's the first problem. Kick it out of the damn end zone and give him the ball at the 25. I watched that play on tape. There wasn't a Jaguar player across the 30 by the time he was fielding it at the 10.
I think that guy, Andrew Beck, ended up hitting 20 miles an hour according to the Next Gen stat. And Breach, actually, I wanted to ask you on something.
I think it was like 20.874 or something like that.
Why would you make that kick in that situation? What's the upside to doing that?
None. I'm assuming they thought, hey, look, if an up back ends up with it, there's no way that guy's going to return it for a touchdown because your up backs aren't as fast as your deep return guys. So I think Jacksonville just outsmarted themselves.
Right. Breach, when you watch the tape, usually you want to try and pin them in. You put it up high and you try and pin them in. I watched it. He fielded it. If he had fielded it cleanly, it was on the 10. There wasn't a Jacksonville player across the 30 when he was fielding it. So let's just say, for the sake of the argument, they met at the 20 and he ended up at the 22. for the sake of 3 yards, you're risking that? Just kick the damn ball out of the end zone. It made no sense. But there were a lot of stupid coaching decisions this week.
Who was it who did the play-by-play in the locker room afterwards? He's like, and I was like, oh! Have you seen that? I think it was on. I saw it on like one of our Instagram clips. But it's like one of the Texans players is like, you know what? You had to be there. You had to see it. All right, moving along. I wasn't going to do a good job explaining that. The books have the Jags as a 3-point favorite at home against the Falcons in London, as we mentioned. They haven't won
in London in last three games there. So it's been, I think, 2019 because they didn't play in 20 during the COVID year, but I think so. It's 3-19. They haven't won there.
Let's say that they win. I don't think they'll shut down the Falcons because the Jaguars defense isn't very good. Let's say that they win 24-17. And it's kind of comfortable, and the Falcons have a last-second garbage touchdown. How high can the Falcons? What happens to the Jaguars Falcons in that scenario?
Well, I don't mean, it just depends on what happens in front of them, but they'll move up a little bit. But then the next week they get Buffalo.
But in London.
In London. I mean, it's in London. It's at the Tottenspur or whatever that is. In
Tottenham.
What? Jacksonville gets a huge travel advantage because they get to stay in London for a week. And Buffalo has to travel.
Tottenspur?
Whatever it is, I don't know.
Victor Wembanyama's playing for the Hotspurs. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
if you really want to offend soccer,
they're moving
resorts.
Victims. Can you believe that? They're staying in a resort, practicing at it. Then after the game on Sunday, they're moving to another resort.
That's what I would do. Stay in as many resorts as possible. Enjoy
I think that's going to be a tough game for them. And then the next week, that's a big break for them. By the way, you get Buffalo in there, then rather than playing them up at their home place. So that's a home game for Buffalo.